Okay, well, good Friday morning, New York Jet fans and NFL fans. It is January 20th, 2023, 6:57 a.m., and we are in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs for the 2022-2023 season. Super Wildcard weekend was last weekend, obviously, and we're going to look at that and also look ahead to this week's divisional matchups. But, of course, reason why we always meet up, reason why I always do this video, um, is for our JETS Jets. And yes, it's been you know uh, almost 2 weeks now since the season ended in Miami. Um, with that, Mike LaFleur and the Jets parted ways amicably, mutually. Honestly, from the reports that I've read, and this is not exactly confirmed as truth, but these were published reports. These were reports reported on the radio station. Woody Johnson was, first of all, a tremendous Zach Wilson fan. He thinks Zach can work out. The number two pick overall, a lot invested in him within the first 2 years. He feels that Zach still has a future here, and the offensive coordinator is a reason why he did not um, move forward, take that next step, or become successful this year. Um, a lot of people forget Zach was 5-2 in a seven game stretch that he played at one point, and then um, didn't win another game after that. So, with that being said, it was in Salah's ear, Joe Douglas's ear. You have to get rid of LaFleur. I think Salah was pushed back a little bit, and then he went to LaFleur and said, "Listen, we're not going to fire you. You're not going to quit. We're going to mutually say that you're going to pursue other options since there are um, feelers out there to bring in LaFleur as a offensive coordinator or higher." So Salah didn't want to make it look like he was holding him back, and also was following, I guess, the direction that the owner wanted him to go into, which is fine. I was not a big LaFleur fan. I thought maybe he would be a good fit with Zach. I thought maybe he'd be a good fit with Salah. But a lot went awry with this. And I was on Twitter yesterday talking to somebody back and forth because the Jets are looking for now an offensive coordinator to fill that position. And they brought in a few, and one of them that they are interested in or have spoken to already is the tight ends coach for the Patriots. While that's being reported, it's also reported that the Patriots are looking at LaFleur to go in and be the offensive coordinator, which, I mean, is possibly because they're going to get rid of Mac Jones. They're looking at free agent veteran quarterbacks, or, you never know what Bill Belichick is dealing with or is planning, but you always know that the plan is substantiated and it's there. And the tweet was, why is it that the Patriots are looking at Mike LaFleur as offensive coordinator, and we're looking at their tight end coach? Why don't they look at their tight end coach? Well, it's a two-part question. The first one is maybe they did look at their tight end coach and they didn't like what he had to say. Maybe they felt he wasn't part of the picture, the direction they wanted to go into. Each team has their own direction. Yes, the ultimate direction is to be played in the second Sunday in February. But the program has to fit together with the coach's program and the structure of where he wants the offense to go. Maybe this tight end coach, and I don't know his name, that's why I keep calling him the tight end coach, did not fit with what Bill Belichick wanted to move forward with. Maybe he feels LaFleur did. On the other hand, I said, well, they're looking at LaFleur. Who would want LaFleur? And he said, well, you can't blame him. Zach's a bad quarterback. Look, Zach has not shown me anything in 2 seasons where I'd say, bet the ranch on him. He's going to be the guy. We just need to develop him. He hasn't proved that to me. He hasn't proved that to me on the field. He hasn't proved that to me in front of the microphone. And I'll get into that quickly as well after this. But, yes, we lost Hall, the running back, and AVT in the same game. We had an offensive line, excuse me, that was a revolving door of tackles and guards. We had just injuries, and teams get by injuries. But okay, you don't blame Zach for that. But Zach also didn't show me what he could do when one of his players go down. There are quarterbacks who step up when players go down. And I won't bring up Brady, and what he could do or this or what he could do. Good quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks, good teams, NFL teams, and good offenses can get around most injuries. Now, obviously, if your quarterback is down, you have a problem. But most teams can work through it. Usually the quarterback being out is where your offense will struggle the most because there's no chemistry, there's no timing, there's no, familiarity with the routes that are being run, and maybe when the receiver comes off his route, where the quarterback's going to be. Losing a quarterback, basically is losing your navigator on a boat or on a flight. You don't know where you're going. You know how to use the controls, but you don't know what you're going to do or how you're going to get there. So it's not all on Zach, but Zach did not step up. Mike White played with the same injuries, and I'm not saying Mike White blew Zach away, but Mike White, I think, had more promise, and that injury actually just destroyed it. But in any case, the Jets have 3 or 4 on their radar. Nathaniel Hackett's one. I remember his father being our offensive coordinator on the Herm Edwards back in the early 2000s. And I read, he brought us to the playoffs 3 times, which is right. 2001, 2002, and 2004. Nathaniel Hackett brought us to the playoffs. But, I'm sorry, Nathaniel Hackett's father, who passed away, I believe, not too long ago. But I will say this. We were very conservative offense back then with a young Chad Pennington. So I don't know, they say Nathaniel Hackett would be good. There are so many things going around. Brian Leftwich, the former Jaguar quarterback, was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay and the Bucs. He was fired, I believe, Tuesday. He was let go. He's a good young offensive coordinator, young mind. And I don't know if anybody remembers this, if you all look remember this. I believe it was Leftwich. He was in a college game, and he was injured on a drive. And I think it was the final drive of the game or late in the game. And after every pass play or every play, his 2 offensive linemen would pick him up underneath his shoulders, either off the ground or just lift him up and walk him to the huddle into the line of scrimmage because he couldn't walk and he finished the game. So there are so many coordinators out there. You want to pick the right one. I am set on Frank Reich. And I said this last week, and I'll say this again quickly. Reich, a quarterback by nature. He has been a head coach in the league. And he is an offensive coordinator, or he could be an offensive coordinator going forward. He fills 2 roles here. You know going into this year, and even though Woody Johnson said, no, it's not a mandated playoff, after this year's tease and after this year's collapse, and after, I'm going to say it, raising ticket prices, and the Jets talking about this elite defense and Garrett Wilson and Hall and Elijah Moore and the 2 tight ends, expectation after 12 seasons of not making the playoffs has to get there. It has to be. It's the longest drought in the NFL. You want somebody, but you also may have to give this coaching regime one more chance. If they don't make the playoffs, Saleh may be gone. I think Douglas stays because I think Douglas right now is working his magic with the trades, and he is on the positive side with the draft, even though we have the bust right now. We're calling the bust to Zach Wilson. So Saleh's going in this year, and I don't want to call him lame duck, but he knows he's got to get a wild card and get a appearance in the playoffs. Any offensive coordinator coming here knows that if they don't make it, first of all, what quarterback am I going to have? Is it going to be a revolving quarterback? Is it going to be Zach Wilson, and I'm going to try to train this guy? Maybe he only wins 7 games this year. Zach, has to take major steps. Am I going to come in there and it's going to be Mike White, but Mike White keeps getting hurt? Like, who's it going to be? Am I getting Aaron Rodgers? Am I getting Tom Brady? I mean, everybody is on the table here. Um, and they know if they don't make it, they may get fired. Frank Reich can come in as offensive coordinator slash assistant head coach. And if Woody Johnson decides after next year, if the Jets don't make the playoffs, um, listen, the Robert Saleh time is come and done here, and he had a 3-year window that didn't work, and blah, blah, blah. Frank Reich could step up as the head coach. It's not another coordinator taking over a head coach position. There's a head coach who played head coach, who's coached. So I like Frank Reich, and I look forward to seeing that. I also look forward to the quarterback's going to be coming in here because this was a report yesterday, and I don't want to give credit to whoever wrote it, not for my reasons, but I just don't know who wrote it. It was on the radio this morning. It was on Twitter yesterday. It was on Instagram yesterday. People were talking about it. I think the paper was called The Athletic, or the site's called The Athletic, where it was stated that Elijah Moore, after the game in Lambeau, when the Jets won, and the whole thing was made that he didn't have any targets or whatever, told Mike LaFleur that he was terrible or whatnot, and I'm just paraphrasing again, go F yourself. The radio this morning said that after that they kind of kissed and made up or whatever, but LaFleur, to me, was just not liked, and I think Elijah Moore was underutilized. I said this early in the season. Flacco had Garrett Wilson his first 3 games. That was his go-to guy. When Zach came in, it was Corey Davis, and Garrett Wilson was his second guy. Elijah Moore was never that guy. Even when Corey Davis went down, Denzel Mims had more targets than Elijah Moore, which is, ironic because they both asked for trades. Then it went into more detail on how when the team found out Mike White was going to start, it was this great feeling in the locker room. And when they found out Wilson was going to start, they kind of mumbled against, when they went to the coach about it. And right now, I have to say, Saleh needs to get control of that locker room. Now, I, as a fan, love seeing the Mike F. and White shirts on the offense walking into the Bears game that day. They were ready. Then the following week, going into Minnesota, they all wore the Mighty Duck jerseys because the Mighty Duck movie and the team was based on a Minnesota, team. They were talking about camaraderie. They were talking about a team. They didn't do this with Zach. There were times where there were tweets about Zach and his inability, and they were liked by Sauce Gardner and I believe Vera Franklin, and then they were taken down. These young men are like our children or the younger generation now, where social media is up and in your face. And, I'll be reading something, and I'll look and I'll say, oh, yeah, I like that. I would never do it against my company or against my coworker or against my superiors or a colleague. But here, where somebody like Sauce Gardner may have 100,000 followers and somebody writes something derogatory about Zach Wilson and he likes it, everybody sees that. It's going to get out. So Saleh needs to keep this locker room happy. Sauce Gardner is going to be here a long time. Garrett Wilson can be here a long time. Hall can be here a long time. You want to make them happy. You want to make them productive. Now, you make them happy in 2 ways. Number one, you're winning. So it doesn't matter who's behind center if you're winning. They could be the biggest ass behind center. If you're winning, you're winning. If you're getting the ball to people, and I know Sauce always said it's not about the stats, and I agree. And he's the first All-Pro in his position in 40-something years of the league, which is amazing. So you make them happy this way. If you have disgruntled, rumbling players, coming in, so the players are like us. They're going to watch the draft. I remember being at a draft party and I was in the locker room, okay, getting autographs. and they drafted, and I forgot what player they drafted on defense, and I don't want to mention any names, but it was back under the Rex era. One of the defensive linemen looked at the screen, shook his head like, why? It was the same year as Sammy Watkins going to Buffalo, and they all knew Sammy was going first. So they watch this. They read the paper on Twitter, they read the news, and they see what's going on. And they're going to go into minicamp saying, Zach Wilson's the guy, this one's the guy. And you're going to set the foundation there. So Saleh needs to get this right for himself, for the team itself, because the product going into this year, from minicamp to the locker room to training camp to the games, are going to reflect Saleh's success as well. Keeping with the offense, there are going to be a number of quarterback free agents or tradable quarterbacks. Every day on Twitter, we're going after 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo. At one point, it was Daniel Jones, but I'll get into that with the Giants and their playoff run right now. I don't know who it is. Probably won't know till at least after the Super Bowl. I think that after the Super Bowl, Derek Carr becomes the first one available that they could speak to. I don't know the calendar. It's usually March. They could speak to restricted free agents, but that's 2 months away. So even though the Jets haven't played in 2 weeks, they right now are working vigorously on getting an offensive coordinator or a quarterback. It's a chicken or the egg. You get the OC in first, and then bring in the quarterback, or you get the quarterback and bring in the OC. Who needs to be more attractive to land the other one? So that is the state of the Jets right now. I'm trying not to get too crazy with it. Once they land either the OC or the quarterback, I'll start looking at where I see the team going. And then, of course, looking at free agency and trading, and then the draft. I mean, the draft will be here in 4 months. I mean, it's ridiculous. In 4 months, it'll be the draft and minicamp. So anyway, for 12 years, the Jets haven't made the playoffs. 12 straight seasons. Last time was on the Rex. And we have to talk about the playoffs. As we cover here to take off. Yes, we are based for the New York Jets fan base and for news around the team, but we're also here to do the takeoff. And we'll talk sports, and we'll talk, baseball and hockey. And wow, the Boston Bruins, I believe, I forgot what they said, how many wins right now. I think they're in their 50s. They came into the tri-state area, beat the Devils, beat the Islanders, beat the Rangers within like a 4 days period. They beat the Rangers and Islanders in back-to-back nights. Last night, the Rangers lost them 3-1. They are a juggernaut right now. And somebody also said, Greg Roman is no longer the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, which, again, another quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Does Greg Roman come to the Jets, and it's Lamar Jackson? But, also, if you get Lamar here, it's a big contract, and you're changing your offense. Boomer Science had said, I'm going to give Boomer props to this. If Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson didn't think they were getting the balls this year with Lamar Jackson, they're not going to get the ball nearly as much. Nearly. But anyway, getting back to hockey. Somebody tweeted, let's say, who's going to play? It was on Facebook in a Ranger group. Who's going to beat the Bruins 4 out of 7 games in a playoff series? They're just that good right now. And I know you're in January, and you're just at the halfway mark, I believe. Just shy of it. But there's a lot of hockey left to be played, but they are, they're running the table right now. They're hot. So, like I said, we're going to talk playoffs. Super Wildcard weekend was last week. It's the first weekend of Wildcard play since it's been instituted into the league, where they had 6 wildcard games. Usually it's 4. Usually you have 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. You always have that late afternoon, late one Saturday, like they did this past week, and then you have a 12:30 to 4:30 on Sunday. Well, this year they did 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, which was great, and then 1 Monday night. The Monday night one, I would have liked if it was a little earlier, maybe do a 7 o'clock game. It was MLK Day, people at home. But so it started off. The first game was Seattle and the 49ers. Seattle started off first half. They kept in pace. Geno Smith looked good. They actually had the lead going into the half on a boneheaded roughing the passer play, which gave the Seahawks field goal range. They took the lead. They wound up losing 41-23. Somebody said the first half was Geno Smith Seahawks, second half was Geno Smith Jets. So the 49ers move on. I believe they have won 11 in a row since trading for Chris McCaffrey, which is amazing. Jacksonville and the Chargers. First of all, I'm not a Charger fan, never really was. They always have that great, and this is when they were in San Diego too, that great regular season, then they get to the playoffs, and they're 1-and-done. The Jets took care of them a few times in the playoffs. One year, the 2009 season, I think they won 11 in a row. They didn't lose a home game. The Jets walked in there for the divisional round. And this was in one of the books written about the Jets. And the players were saying that the Jets didn't belong there, and they backed into the playoffs, and the Jets wound up spanking them. So San Diego now in LA goes down to Jacksonville. Jacksonville wins the division. Trevor Lawrence. And again, somehow the Jets are put into this because 2 years ago, the Jets beat the Rams in a game that the Jets didn't need. And they lose out on the number 1 pick overall. They don't pick Trevor Lawrence. They pick Zach Wilson. Jaguars get the number 1 pick. They pick Zach Wilson. Listen, I'm not going to say that Trevor is not a more skilled, a better quarterback. I'm not going to say that. Even though he's showing what he can do, he's showing what happens. But I also think Doug Peterson is a good coach. And Peterson and his coaching staff and his offensive coordinator, who I can't think of right now, had Trevor Lawrence, and they developed him. So he comes to the Jets. Who knows if Robert Saleh and LaFleur can develop him? But so you can't say, well, if we would have got, and we can run at anybody, so you don't go by that. So the Jaguars host it. They had down at one point, I'd be lying, but I think it was 27-0. Or 7, it was 17 or 27-0. At the half, they had just scored a touchdown. They had just gotten in, and then it was all Jacksonville. The first, I think, 3 or 5 possessions, Lawrence threw interceptions. There were texts, tweets that he's a good quarterback, but he's just not mature enough to play in these games. And then 3 hours later, they're walking off 31-30 winners. They move on. A great game. I'm rooting for Jacksonville. I really am. I want to see somebody doing it. I know they were in the AFC Championship game probably about 4 or 5 years ago, but I'm just rooting for Jacksonville. So then Sunday, you have the Bills and the Dolphins. And the Jets know these teams very well. They split with them this year. Miami lost Tua twice this year. He may never play again. Bridgewater is now hurt. They had their third quarterback, third string quarterback come in. The Jets annihilated him earlier in the season, but he's played. He's in the playoff games. Buffalo, I believe, is a 13.5-point favorite at this point, and the Dolphins had the lead a few times in this game. But Mike McDaniels and the offense, it was he couldn't get plays in. They had to take timeouts after timeouts in the second half because they couldn't get the play in on time. Delay a game penalties. The inability to get those play calls in and have to call the timeouts and all that really, I think, affected this young quarterback in the second half. They had every shot in the world to beat the Bills, and the Bills gave them every shot. So Bills wound up winning 34-31. I think, what's it called? I think McDaniel's job is safe. They need a quarterback there. It could be this young man that they had. Could also be Tua coming back. I don't know. So the Dolphins move on. Then the middle game is Vikings-Giants. The Vikings won 13 games this year. They won 11 of them, I believe, one score or less. They beat the Jets one score or less. They beat the Giants one score or less on a 60-something plus field goal attempt. The Giants went in there feeling good. First drive of the game, Minnesota goes right down the field. They used 7.5 minutes. They scored a touchdown. But the Giants never looked back. Saquon was all over the place. Giant defense was making plays. They were getting to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins just couldn't move the ball effectively. Daniel Jones, I mean, they were play calling, and I give this to Damo and the offense where they were play calling. There was one play, I mean, they were running Saquon across and through the middle, around. There was one play that did kind of a Statue of Liberty play where Jones steps back, okay, he fakes it's play action. He then fakes the end around to Saquon this way, comes across his body, and goes to the other side, and the player just takes the ball and goes with it. I mean, unbelievable. The Giants win. Their final score is 31-24. And then the night game, Ravens-Bengals. Again, Lamar Jackson not in. If he's in, maybe they win. But they had a chance. The Ravens went head-to-head with the Bengals, had the ball on the 1-yard line. They called for a quarterback sneak with the young QB. The young QB went up high. Ball was knocked out of his hands. Returned 98 yards, fumble return for a touchdown by one of the Bengal defenders. After the game, the running back said he should have been in the game. It shouldn't have been on the young quarterback. Harbaugh, being in fashion, style, said the quarterback knew that to go high, he wouldn't go low. So right there, shots fired, and the quarterback said something else, and the running back. So it's not, it's kind of a mess there. And if they lose Lamar and they already, Greg Roman already left. So the Bengals move on. Prime time, Cowboys, Buccaneers. Cowboys have not won a playoff game, I think they said, since 1993 or 4. So you're talking the Troy Aikman era. I think it was the Barry Switzer era. Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, all the classic Dallas players. Tampa Bay, 2 years off the Super Bowl. Last year, they were in the playoffs. Of course, Todd Bowles, as Jet fans know very well, all too well, take over the head reins of the coaching for Bruce Arians. And at the beginning of the year, this team is doing nothing. Brady looks his age. Brady's getting divorced. Brady, looks like he's going to just, I know he's not going to quit, but maybe he retires or whatever. And they go into Monday Night Football. The first time a playoff game is on Monday night. And Brady is just dominated. 31-14, Cowboys win. They move on. So I have liked from the beginning of the year, the Bengals, of course, and the Bills. And then you have Kansas City, who didn't play. They won the division. And then you have, on the NFC side, the Eagles, with their quarterback kind of gimpy a little bit now, Jalen Hurts. They won the division. So they were off. So that makes the matchups this weekend. I mean, these are great matchups. First of all, Saturday, 4 o'clock or 4:30, Jaguars go into, I always call it Arrowhead. They go into Kansas City. Listen, you want to say Jacksonville's playing with house money, you can say that. I don't think anybody expected them to win the division, possibly get to a wild card. But they have a home game. They win the division. They get the home playoff game. They beat the Chargers in a game where they're dead in the water, 5 turnovers in the first half, I think on the first 5 drives. They go into Kansas City. They can't play the first half like they played against the Chargers. Then you have, and I'm gonna go through the spreads as well. Then you have the Giants Saturday night, 8:15. Everybody from New York City down to Atlantic City into Philly is watching this game. The Giants lost to Philly twice this year. The one thing I will say, the last game, I think it was the last game of the season, Giants played Philly. The Giants had their second stringers in there. Philly had most of their first stringers in for a while, and the Giants hung with them even though they lost. So they go into the Eagle territory. I know people are making a trek down there. It's going to be rough. And that's the Saturday slate, and we'll get into the spreads in, like I said, 2 seconds. Sunday, the 3 o'clock game, Bengals go to the Bills. Um, Look, I think the Bengals have a great shot to win this game. They have to tighten up what they did last week. The Bills should win this game. And then you have 49ers and Cowboys. And I don't even think, and no disrespect to my Cowboy fans, I don't think the 49ers give the Cowboys a shot. I think San Francisco hosts this game. Um, they uh, they they ride on Purdy's arm. They ride on their winning streak, and the Cowboys, I don't think, get further than that. That's just my opinion. So let's look at the spread. Okay, so the game I'm really rooting for Jacksonville. I don't really root for many teams. I like to root for Jacksonville because I'm Jet through and through, blue. Jacksonville getting 8.5 in Kansas City. I'll take the 8.5. I think Jacksonville keeps it close. Um, I don't know if they win. I'd like to see Jacksonville win. I'd like to see them get to the AFC Championship game. Uh, but Kansas City at home, Kansas City anywhere is tough, especially in the playoffs. So I'll take the 8.5. I think they keep it very close, and maybe the ball bounces their way. Um, but I think Kansas City wins outright. Giants at the Eagles. I don't want to annoy or piss off any Giant fans. As a Jet fan, Giants are not my rival. My rivals are the Bills, the Patriots, and the Dolphins. The Giants, yes, we share a stadium, and that is just another rabbit hole we can get into, another argument, and I'll do a podcast on that as well. I'll do a video on that later on. They have won, 4 Super Bowls. They've been in 5. They basically have Mac Jones one more year than we have Zach Wilson, and one more year, 2 years more than we have Zach Wilson. I think it was 1 year. I'm not sure, 1 or 2, whatever. And I don't want to, go off on a tangent. And a new head coach and they should not, on paper, be where they are. We should be ahead of them because of the longevity and whatnot. But they make the playoffs. They go on a nice run. They beat Minnesota on the road. Now they go to Philly. They're getting 7.5. I think the Giants with the 7.5 are good to go. Philly and the Giants always have a way to end a game where you look at it and say, wow, with the miracle at the Meadowlands with Herm Edwards, with the miracle kickoff return by Deshaun Jackson, with Jason Sehorn and that tremendous interception back in 2000 where he caught it, flipped over, came back up and went for the touchdown. I mean, so I'm going to say right now the 7.5 points way too much to give the Giants. I think the Giants with the 7.5 win, and I'm just going to call it a pick 'em. I don't want to pick this game. I don't want to look like I'm picking against the Giants, and I don't want to look like I'm picking the Giants just to pick them. But Giants plus 7.5, I'll take. Cincinnati goes to Buffalo. They are now getting 5.5 points. I said that earlier. I think Cincinnati wins this game with the 5.5. I think they win the game outright. I think they felt a little disrespected being a 5.5 point underdog. They play at a cold weather stadium and city. They go to Buffalo where, it's a little bit more extreme, but I think Cincinnati has a good shot at this game. And then Dallas and the 49ers. Dallas getting 3.5 at 49ers. I take San Fran straight up with giving it 3.5 and winning the game. So there you have it. I got Jacksonville plus the 8.5. I'll take the Giants plus 7.5. I'll take the Bengals plus 5.5, and I'll take San Francisco. I'll give it 3.5. Those are the divisional rounds. 2 quick things that just came up. One I heard yesterday, one I just saw on NFL Network. First thing, Harbaugh, the coach of The Baltimore Ravens said yesterday Lamar Jackson is 200% going to be their quarterback. Now, is that the kiss of death, or is that coming out saying to Lamar and to the media and to the fans, we're going to work this out? Number one. Number two, yesterday, Broadway Joe, good old Joe, love Joe. I met Joe a number of times, did some stuff with him a number of times, actually DJ'd an event where he was the guest of honor. And wonderful guy, has great stories. I mean, he's a guy you could sit around and say, Joe, just tell me about those Friday or Saturday nights. I mean, the stories he has, just unbelievable, 50 years later. But he tweets a lot, and he has a lot to say, especially when it comes to the quarterback situation. And he said if Aaron Rodgers came to the Jets, now, Aaron Rodgers wears number 12 for the Green Bay Packers. If Aaron Rodgers came to the Jets, Joe would take his number out of retirement and let Aaron Rodgers wear it while he was on the Jets. So there is a little nudge from probably the name in football where whether you're a Jet fan, not a Jet fan, a NFL fan now, or from years past, when you say Joe Namath, think, oh yeah, the quarterback of the Jets, number one. He dated all those girls. He's advocating for Aaron Rodgers. Does he have Woody's ear? Does Woody go to Joe Douglas and say, that man that gave us that one trophy that's in our trophy case right there, that one trophy, the 69 Jets, he says Aaron Rodgers. Does that happen? We should see. I don't know. That's going to be something very interesting to watch. But anyway, this is the takeoff. Like this video, subscribe to this video. You can reach us on Instagram. I'm sorry, you can reach us on Twitter, not Instagram yet. Not Instagram yet. Twitter, @the Jets Takeoff is our handle. Facebook, the Takeoff is the Facebook page. You can meet us there. You can email us at thejetstakeoff@gmail.com. And right here on YouTube, the account name is The Takeoff. The channel for the account is The Jets Takeoff. You can Google it. You can Google those two names. You can Google Alex Paziali. You can find it, like it, retweet it, get your friends here. Let me know. What do you think about the season? Is it LaFleur's problem about Zach? Was it Zach that made LaFleur basically have to leave? Did Saleh lose the locker room? Is Saleh just being a puppet to Woody? Or Saleh making the necessary changes going forward? We have a lot to cover from now until the camp and the draft and off-season moves. But right now, divisional round playoffs, the next 2 weeks are the greatest 2 weeks of the NFL playoffs because wildcard weeks, while they were exciting last week, they kind of start sorting out who should be where. This week now, you're playing the division winners. So, the two top seeds. So even the division winners that weren't the top seed, the 2, 3, and the 4 are going on the road. And then, of course, next week are the conference championships, which everybody calls the real championships of the league, not the Super Bowl. But anyway, have a great day. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a blessed weekend, a healthy weekend. Stay safe. And any news comes up on the Jets offensive coordinator or quarterback, which I doubt very much this weekend will happen, I'll have it on Twitter. If it's tremendous news, I'll do a video. If not, we'll talk next week about the divisional round results and looking at championship weekend.